today's video, we're going to be building a booking calendar type of app from scratch, step by step. And you can think of these kinds of apps that you might be using anytime you need to book maybe a appointment at your local barber shop or some kind of an appointment with another person that provides you a specific service, maybe a type of consultation and things like that. So this is going to be a fully functioning app. This is going to be an A to Z tutorial, and you're going to learn a ton of things when it comes to building very, very useful no-code apps. We're going to be using FlutterFlow, which is one of my favorite no-code builders right now, and we're going to be storing data in Firebase's Firestore. Now, before we begin, as always, all the apps that I demonstrate and or build on this channel are available from my Patreon page, and you can learn more about it using the link in the description below. Now, before we begin, it's very, very important to sit down and try to kind of figure out the main architecture. And trust me, if you spend some time doing this, you're going to save a lot of time and a lot of aggravation when you're actually building the app. Okay. And so this is our booking app flow right now. We have the customer logs in and they immediately see a list of barbers. Now I'm saying a list of barbers because that's kind of what I am aiming at, but you can replace barbers with any kind of profession that you might be interested in building an app for or presenting to these kinds of professions. And so the user sees a list of barbers and they can click and, look at the barber's detail, kind of learn more about the specific barber, look at their reviews, ratings, or they can book a time. Okay, so they can book a time. They can also see available, the available times that they can book. They can see the earliest available day, the earliest available time, things like that. And they also have a page that allows them to see bookings. So things like future and past bookings. And on their past bookings, they can leave a rating and a review. So they can leave a rating from like 1 to 5, and they can also enter a review. So say something like, this is a great barber, completely recommend, or they can write pretty much anything else. This is our kind of beginner architecture. Obviously, as we go along, maybe we'll add or kind of alter some of the things, but this is a good start, right? You always need this when you're building apps. Otherwise, it's going to be a pain. Trust. The next thing that you want to kind of design and kind of envision is the database structure. And this is very, very important. It's as important as the architecture, because I like to call the database structure as kind of your home base. And what I mean by that is when you design it and you're 100% sure that this is kind of what you want, this is kind of how you want the apps to behave. If you have any issues building the apps, you can always come back to it and kind of figure out if it fits in as to what you're trying to do. This is your home right here, okay? And so we got the users collection, and inside the users collection we have the service providers. In this case, these are going to be barbers, and we also have the customers, right? So if you're logging in, you need a haircut, you're going to be a customer, and the way we're going to be differentiating them is by roles. So this is going to have a barber role, this is going to have a customer role, and I'm just going to have them all in the same collection. Now, in the barbers collection, we're going to have two sub collections. We're going to have the bookings and the reviews, and that way a barber has its own bookings that are related to that barber. So barber A might have 3 bookings for today and maybe 2 bookings for tomorrow. And obviously a barber needs to have reviews, right? These are going to be stored as a sub collection on the barber's collection on the barber's level, and each review is going to have a rating, which is going to be an integer from 1 to 5, and it's going to have a piece of text that's going to specify what the user thought. And the bookings is just going to have a one field, which is going to be the time. Okay, so maybe it's going to be tomorrow at 1 p.m. or 2 p.m. or today at maybe 5 p.m. This is just going to be the time field, which is dated time. And actually these fields, they play really, really nicely in FlutterFlow, as you're going to see in just a few moments. Okay, and that's kind of our main data structure. Obviously, as we start building the app, we might alter it, change it around, things like that. All right. So now that we looked at some of the architectures, we kind of, looked at them, we internalized them, we studied them. It's now time to actually, roll up our sleeves and start to build the app. So I've logged into my FlutterFlow, and I'm going to create a new project. I'm going to say create, and I'm going to call it, let's say, and I'm going to do a blank app. Okay. Now it's asking me to give it a name. What we have in the package name, we're just going to leave it a default, and we're going to set up Firebase, obviously, because we need to store that data somewhere. So I'm going to hit next. And we need a Firebase project ID. So the way you get this is you go to your Firebase console. Okay, so if you already have been building apps for FlutterFlow, you know exactly, you have this already set up. If you've not built apps for FlutterFlow, you've never used Firebase, you can simply Google for Firebase and create your account. Once you do that, you're going to be logged in onto a page that looks something like this. Now, as you can see, I already have 3 projects that I use over and over again in many of my apps. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new project with you. And that way you guys can follow along if that's what you're doing as well. So I'm going to say add a project, and I'm just going to say, whatever, barber. I'm going to say continue. This doesn't really matter. I'm going to say continue. Just going to pick default, create an account. We're going to wait a few moments here while it's creating. All right. So the new project is ready. We're going to hit continue. And now we are redirected to a dashboard for that specific project. And inside of this thing, we have lots of things that you can do. So it's not just database. There's lots of other functionality. And I covered Firebase in one of my other videos. You can see that video linked above. But here we're just interested in Firestore database. So I'm going to click here. And when I do that, I don't see anything. Okay, I don't see any databases. That is because I need to create a database. And here you can choose whether you want to do it in production mode or test mode. Doesn't really matter for this specific example. So I'm just going to do it in, let's say, test mode. Okay, and what test mode does is if you choose test mode, essentially what's going to happen is going to stop functioning. It's going to stop accepting requests after a certain date, right? Typically it's going to be a month from now. So we're just going to say next. That's fine. Leave that on default. All right. So our Firebase Firestore project has been created. And now what we're seeing is our collections and documents inside of those collections, and right now I don't have anything, right? So I need to create a new collection. We're gonna get to it in just a second. So now that we've set up our Firestore database, we can go back to our app and we can specify this project ID. And what is the project ID? Well, if you click here, go to project settings, you're going to see information about this project. We called it Barber app, and there's the project ID. So you can rename the project name, but you can't rename the ID. So I'm going to copy this, paste it in here. And when I do that, I'm going to get an error. FlutterFlow does not have access to this Firebase project, Firebase account. Please add Firebase at flutterflow.io as an editor. And so what you need to do is you need to go to users and permissions. And I think it wants Firebase at flutterflow.io, and we're going to give it an editor role. And what we've just done is we gave FlutterFlow access to this specific project in a very high privileged permissions. So meaning that they can create all kinds of things, they can modify, and that's absolutely fine. So now that we've done that, we can click this again, and hopefully we should not have an error. So as you can see, we have 2 new buttons. We don't have an error. The next thing you want to do is you want to click here. You want to auto-generate config files. And what this does, it creates configuration files for this specific FlutterFlow app that we're building. And so this specific app is going to have access to our Firestore DB, and because it's creating those files and it's putting it there, right? And so if you go over here, you click on project settings and you refresh this, you should see the new app right here. So as you can see, it created 3 project settings, right? These are settings for 3 different types of apps that you might be building. So like there's a web app version, there's going to be an iOS version, as well as an Android version as well. So that is all created. That is great. We can go back to FlutterFlow. We're going to enable authentication, and we're going to create user collection. We're going to enable both of them. And what this does is now we can use authentication. Okay, so when you enable this, you need to make sure that you go back to Firebase and you enable authentication here as well. We only enabled Firestore database. So I'm going to go into build and I'm going to go into authentication. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say get started and I'm going to enable this as well, right? I'm going to just enable email and password. You can also do things like Google authentication, Facebook, Twitter, all of these. In this specific app tutorial, we're only going to be using email and password, which is enough. So we have this enabled. And so in this project, this Barber app project, we're just using two things. We're using authentication and Firestore database. So we can go back to FlutterFlow and we've enabled both of these. And now we need to do a couple of other things. More specifically, we need to create an entry page, which is a login page, and a logged in page, which is going to be the first page that the users see once they log in. So for the login page, I'm going to click here. I'm going to go into all and I'm going to just pick a random page. I like this page. I've been using this page. So I'm just going to click on use my template and I'm just going to type login. I'm going to say create page. So I created the page and it's specified it here, which is exactly what we want. And now we need a logged in page. And you have to ask yourself at this point, what is the logged in page? Well, remember we talked about the logged in page right here, which is the list of barbers, right? So this is going to be, they're going to log in and they're going to see a list of service providers. In this case, they're going to be barbers, but you know, these could be pretty much anybody, right? And so we're going to go back to our app. We're going to come in here, and because this is going to be a list of something, it's a good idea to come to lists, to click here on this tab, and then you can pick a list. You can obviously, you know, you can go here and you can create a blank page. You can do that too. That's fine. But I like to save a little bit of time. And that's why I'm going to start with a template. So I'm going to come to list and I'm going to pick a list page that kind of looks as to what we want. So maybe something like this. As you can see, it's a list of people and we can change it around. We can modify. So I'm going to say use my theme and I'm going to say, and now everything is fine. Right, we've created our config files, we've enabled this, we specified the pages. You just want to click on start building. Okay, now what we have here so far is we have these pages that we created, but right away you see that we have some project issues. So I like to fix my issues right away because as we're building the app, you know, we're obviously going to have more and more issues that we're going to be fixing. So it's better to fix it sooner than later. So I'm going to click here. And as you can see, I have a couple of issues. Auth action, it hasn't properly set confirm password. And the reason for that is this page that we're using, this is a page that allows user to not only log in, but also create accounts, right? And the reason I say that is because you see it says create account and log in. So this right here is the create account. If you scroll down, this tab page is the login page. Now for the create account page, it's giving us an error because it needs, if you click here, you can see that it has a improperly set confirm password. And that is because when you are doing a, you know, create an account page, you can do all of that inside of FlutterFlow, which is awesome. But you do need another field that's going to be confirmation password field. Okay. So if we click here, we see it here. I'm just going to duplicate it. Once I have it here, once I have this one right here, I can set it as the confirmation field. Let me set it to password 2 to differentiate them. And now if I go back here, I should be able to set it. So once I set it, there's no project issues are fine. And we still have 2 errors, bottom sheet action. It's doing a bottom sheet, which means that it's configured to do another view, to pull up another view. We don't really need that. So I'm just going to delete that. We don't need a bottom sheet. I mean, we might implement it later, but it's not important right now. So I'm going to delete this. And once I do that, we should have no issues at all. We only have Firestore rules set up that we can configure. Okay. So before we do that, the next thing that we need to do is we need to configure our backend. We need to configure our Firestore DB. Okay, so by default, FlutterFlow creates a users collection. And by the way, you can get to the screen by clicking here and clicking here. So by default, it creates a users collection. And what this means is that when we are creating users, this users collection, right? So I'm back in my Firebase Firestore dashboard. We don't have a users collection here, but that's fine because it's here created by FlutterFlow automatically. And what this means is that when we are creating our user accounts, they're going to be created automatically inside of our Firestore DB because the schema is here. Once you have the schema, you're going to have stuff created here automatically. Okay. And that's fine. But we're not done yet. Remember, when we were designing this whole thing, we have lots of things going on, right? So we have our users divided into two roles, but we also have bookings and review. Now, at this point, I like to run my app just to make sure that everything is fine. Okay. That everything is working as expected. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to run it in test mode. We're going to start it out just to make sure that everything is running perfectly smooth. All right, so here's our app running for the first time. And as you can see, we are seeing this initial screen, this login screen. And the reason we're seeing it is because we're not logged in. If we were logged in, we would not see the screen. We would be seeing the home. And so we can log in or we can create an account. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an account because we don't have any accounts. I'm just going to create an account. Now there's a problem here. As I'm typing it, it's not displaying the text, right? So if I go in here, it's very, very faint. And that means I need to change some of the settings. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the app. I'm going to go back to the login screen and I'm going to click on email. And as you can see, if I scroll down, this text color is white. I need to make sure it's black. Change it so that I can see it. And this is probably a small bug in this template here. Okay, so now it's black. And while I'm at it, I'm also going to remove the Google and the Apple logins because we're not going to be using them. Okay, so I'm going to delete all that. I'm just going to leave just the email authentication. So we're going to delete all that just to keep things very, very simple. We can always re-enable that later. So now our text fields are all black. The text, the color of the text is all black, and I'm going to do that. Yeah, this text color is actually set correctly. So now we're going to reload our app. And what's nice about FlutterFlow is that once you build the app, you're running the app, you can easily reload it after you've made changes. And it's very, very fast, just a couple of seconds. That initial building might take some time, but the reloading is very, very quickly. And so now if we type, we can see the text. So it's probably a small, a minor bug in this specific template. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create my account, maybe a couple of other accounts. Okay, just some random account. And I've created the account. And as you can see, once I've created the account, it automatically logged me in and we are seeing that homepage that we've created. Now we obviously need to modify it. We need to tweak it, but at least we are seeing this page. And if I go into my dashboard, that Firestore dashboard, and I reload it, I should see that users collection right here, and I should see that one document with the account that we've just created. Okay, so as you can see, this created account, this email UID, and also if you go into authentication, you should see that new account created here. Okay, and the reason is in this field right here, this row, this is what logs you in, right? The fact that it's here means you can log in. This is the user ID, and you can reset the password, disable account, delete account. But it's also here because you may need to display this account. Okay, then that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be displaying them as well. So now at least we have this one account. Okay, and we can start using it. Now in this app, we need at least two accounts, right? So we need one consumer and one provider, right? One producer, which is the barber, and one consumer, which is maybe me, right? Because I'm looking for barber services. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back to the app, and what I need to do is I need to log out, and I want to create another account just so that we have at least two accounts. Unfortunately, I cannot log out because I don't have access to a page that allows me to log out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another page that's going to display my account, and it also is going to give me an option to log out. So we're going to go back to the app. We're going to click here, new page. We're going to go to, I believe, settings. Yep, settings right here. And then you can pick a page that displays some user settings and gives you an option to log out. So not that important what this page does. So maybe something like this. Use this, and I'm going to say profile. This is going to be our profile. And so it's a built-in profile page that allows us to log out, right? So if we click here, there's an action that executes something called an auth logout, right? This is there's lots of things when it comes to log out, log in, change password, but this one allows us to do log out. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to customize this page real quick, right? So we want to display the name, we want to display the email, but I'm not gonna, change any of these things. I'm not gonna enable these because all I'm really looking for is log out. So I'm gonna click this, I'm gonna click here, and I'm gonna pick authenticated user because this is the user that's logged in. So this is kind of what we want to see. We want to see information about the logged in user. I'm going to pick this display name. I'm going to click here. I'm going to pick authenticated user email, and that's about it. And then also the image as well. Click here and authenticated user photo URL. And I don't think we have the photo configured, because if we go in here, we only have 3 fields. So I'm going to add the photo later, and you're going to see the photo there. Now we do have one error. I'm going to click on it. There's a line color. There's an issue with this line color somewhere. Let's figure that out. So there's some line color. Let's clear that color. Let's see if that fixes it. And that fixed it. Okay, so now we have that page. The problem is if we reload this app, we're still not going to see the page. And what we need to do is we need to create a nav bar. That way we can have access to pages that we don't have access when we are navigating the app, right? So because it's not part of kind of the list detail view and the page hierarchy, right? This is a separate page. And so what we need to do is we need to come in here, we need to select the page, profile, and we need to see show a nav bar. And so nav bar is currently off in the app settings. We are gonna enable it, and it's telling us nav bar requires at least 2 pages to have show a nav bar set, and that's fine, because we can enable home. Okay, and now we should have a nav bar. So if we scroll down, we see a nav bar. Except this profile, I don't want it to have a home icon. I want it to have some kind of a so maybe something like this. And that way we can have access to this page. So I'm gonna come back here, I'm gonna reload the page, and we should see a nav bar that will allow us to access different pages that are not part of the current pages hierarchy. Okay, so now this is the home page. We can click here and we see the profile page. And as you can see, there's my email. I don't have an image, and I don't even have a name. I don't have a display name. And that is because if we go back to our app and we come into our database schema, there's this display name, which is not set. In fact, I can set it right now. I can add a new field, call it display name. So now I have James No Code. And if we go back to the app, it's immediately being displayed. That is because anytime you change fields in Firestore DB, change the data, it's reflected automatically. Okay. So now I can click on log out. I'm logged out, and I can create another account, just like what we talked about. So I have my consumer account, which is James. I'm going to create a new account, which is going to be our barber, our hypothetical barber. And so this is going to be barber@barber.com, password, a random password. And now I should have that new account created, and I'm logged in as this hypothetical barber. Okay, so if I go in here, now I have 2 documents here. Okay, so I'm also going to create a display name, and I'm going to say Joe. Go back and we see Joe Barber here. Okay, so now I'm logged in as the barber. Okay, and I don't want to be logged in as the barber. I want to be logged in as myself. But another thing that I want to do is I want to make sure that we can differentiate producers and consumers. So Joe Barber is a producer, and what we need to do is I'm going to create another field called role, and I'm going to call it, I'm just going to name it producer. Okay, just for a lack of a better term, I'm just gonna call it producer, because actually maybe provider, a service provider, right? I'm gonna hit add. So this is a provider, and I'm a consumer, right? So I'm gonna say role. And the reason I need to do that is because if I go in here, and this is the screen that's gonna display the barbers, I don't want to display other users. I only want to display people that are actually providing the service. And speaking of the screen, let's go ahead and configure it now. I'm gonna go back here, gonna come here, pick our UI, go to our UI editor, go into homepage, and we have this template here. Now we need to change things around, right? We don't want to display just random stuff. We want to display actual data. And the way we're going to do it is we're going to come in here. This is a list view. And what this means is that this is a view that displays children as items. Okay, so there's all of these widgets here that are being displayed. And if you need a refresher on how FlutterFlow works, I actually have a really, really good tutorial that you can see in the corner right there. And that's going to explain to you everything you need to know when it comes to widgets and things like that. Because in this video, I'm just going to gloss over all of the details. So we have a list view. And what we need to do is, instead of displaying just random stuff, we need to display the actual data. So we're going to click on backend query. We're going to add a backend query. We're going to do query collection. We're going to do users, list of documents, and we're going to do a filter. The filter is going to be role. We don't have a role here yet. That is because we haven't specified it in the schema. So we're going to come here. We're going to add it right here. We're going to say role. Role is a string. Add backend query, query collection, users. And what do we want to do? We only want to display providers. So we want to say equal to, and we want to display providers. It should be provider. This is consumer provider. So we're only going to be seeing Joe Barber. We're not going to see ourselves because we don't have a role of provider. I'm going to come back here. We're going to say role is equal to provider. And we can also enable this, exclude current user. This is good practice, right? Because most of the apps you're going to be building, you're going to be looking at a list of users, and there's no reason to see yourself, right? Because I'm seeing some other users that I may want to interact with, whether you're building a social media app, or any kind of app that displays a list of users. You typically do not want to see yourself. So most of the time you're going to enable this unless you have a good reason not to. We're going to say confirm. And now, as you can see, we're seeing some grayish. That means this field is going to be it's going to be replicated, it's going to be duplicated, repeated. It's going to be repeated with the data that we are getting from the database. Now there's a couple of things I want to do. I want to just clean up this thing because we have this container, which is this thing, but it's a template, right? So we have other containers. I'm just going to delete the other containers. We don't really need that because we just need one container to be repeatable. We're going to come here, delete all this. Okay, we're done. So now we have one container, which is exactly what we need. And we have search patients. We don't want to do that. I'm just going to say barbers. This is our list of barbers. Maybe search barbers here. We have patients matching. We don't really need that. Next, we can also reload the app just to see if we're getting the right results, right? The right things are happening, right? The changes are being reflected. We are seeing an error, but this project does not have any errors. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to reload it again. And once we reload the app, we see that there's one record that's being displayed. Okay. Obviously, the information is not correct, but that's fine. We can easily fix that in just a second. But at least the record is being displayed. And this record is actually that one provider that we have set, okay? And so if we go back to the app, now we need to make sure it's displaying the correct information. The first thing is we want to change the image. We don't have an image set for that user yet, but we're going to change that in just a second. And so we want to select the image. We want to click here. And we have this user's document that is being displayed, right? So if we click on user's document, we can pick photo URL, choose the text, click here, user's document, the display name. We have the number, but we don't really need the number. And maybe we want to display the email. Okay, so click here. So now if we come back and we reload our test environment, reload the new version of the app, we should see the right information. And so now if you go in here to our user profile and we log out and we log back in as a customer, we should see the right barber. So I'm going to log in as myself, as a customer here, and we are seeing Joe Barber here. Okay, so Joe Barber does not have an image, but everything else checks out. And so let's go ahead and add an image to Joe Barber. So I found a random image that we can use for Joe Barber. I'm just going to copy it here, go back to our Firestore, and I'm going to add a field. I believe it's called photo URL. So if we go in here, our schema, we have photo underscore URL. We're going to add it to Joe Barber. And now if we go to the app, we see the image for Joe Barber. Now this is great and all, but I really don't see the purpose of displaying their email here and maybe this thing, because what I really want to display is their next available dates that they're available so that the user can book. And the other thing we're going to do is we're going to display a calendar up on top so that we can pick a date and see all the different barbers and see their availability on that date, or maybe the next available day. And so for that, we need to kind of figure out how we want to do it. So remember, we talked about the main architecture, and for each barber, we have bookings. Okay, and so we're going to pull up these bookings and we're going to see, okay, they're booked on, let's say, at this date at, 2 p.m. Okay, so that means we should not be displaying that date. We should display all the other dates from, let's say, 9 to 5, except the dates that they're booked on. And so what I like to do before I do everything is I like to go to my database, and what I want to do is I want to create this sub collection. Okay, this sub collection is going to be created for us automatically when we're going to be adding fields, provided that we have the structure in place. But for testing, I like to create it myself first, just to see, things work as expected. And so I'm going to go to Barbara and I'm going to create this sub collection. I'm going to call it bookings. And I'm going to create one document, which is one booking. And I'm just going to call it time This is going to be timestamp, and I'm going to pick, let's say, today's date, and let's say they're booked for, I don't know, 3 p.m. Okay, so something like this, 3 p.m. Okay, so now they have one booking for 3 p.m. And that means when we are building the app, we're building the functionality, we can, we can see how it behaves if they have a booking. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I want to go back to my app and I want to create a schema for the sub collection. Okay, so we're going to come in here and this is going to be bookings. It's a sub collection of users and it only has one. Actually, it's going to have more than one field. It's going to have two fields. Okay, so this is going to be the time field and this is going to be date and time. And I also want to store the UID, and this is going to be the UID of the person, of the customer that's booking it, right? Remember, these collections are, this is a sub collection on the providers, on the provider document, right? But we also need to keep track who's the person that's booking it. So if I book it with Joe Barber, this is going to be my ID. So I'm going to come in here. We're going to set UID document reference to use. And we have two fields. And while I'm at it, I'm going to create another sub collection called reviews, which is a sub collection of users. And it's going to have two, which is an integer 1 to 5 and a review, which is just string. So now we have two sub collections that do completely different things. We have the bookings and we have the reviews. And so if we go back to our app right here, go back to this app, and what I want to do is I want to display their information. So I don't want to display the email. I don't really care about email. I do want to display their name. But here, what I want to do is I want to display the next available date that they're available. So let's say today is May 18th and they're available today, but they're available from 3 p.m., 3 to 6 p.m. or 3 to 5 p.m. That's kind of what I want to see. Or if they're not available today, show me, the next available day. Maybe they're available tomorrow all day or certain days. I want to see that. And that's kind of what I want to see here. And for that, we need to create a custom function that displays this information. And so we're going to come in here and we're going to create a custom function. Now, I already created a custom function using ChatGPT that I'm going to show you how I did it in just a second. And this function is called get available slots. Okay, because we want to get available slots that are not booked yet. So all the slots that are not booked, they're available. Okay, so we're going to add this function right here. We're going to say add function and we're going to call this, I have it called get available slots. Okay, and this function takes two arguments, right? It takes the slots that are already reserved, that are stored in our Firestore DB. And it's also taking an argument called start date arc, because we want to check which is the start date. By default, it's going to be today, but the user can also pick, in a month from now, right? Maybe they're traveling, they're not available, they don't need a haircut, but they want to check in a month from now. And we're going to have a calendar and all that to control that. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to have two arguments one is called reserved slots, which is a list of date and times. This is going to be called reserved slots, and we're going to be passing it from the database. And the next argument we need is called start date, right? Which is just the date and time. And this is the date that we want to check on. By default, it's today, but maybe the user wants to check next month or something like that. And I'm going to call start date arc. This is date and time. That's what we have. And this function is going to return a list of date and times, which is a list of their, available time. We're going to come in here, date and time. We're going to say list. And now I have the function and now I can copy it and paste it in here. And I'm going to explain to you everything that it does. So we're going to paste this function and we're going to save it. Okay. You can also click here to kind of format it. But now we have this function that returns us something called available slot. And the way I generated this function is I went to ChatGPT and I said, write a Dart function that takes an input of reserved requests specified as a timestamp and returns available bookings as hour block, assuming the person works from 9 to 5 p.m. Only list the next available day as long as there is at least one slot open. So meaning that if they're available today, I just want to see dates for today. I don't want to see dates for, 2 months in advance, like all the dates they have, right? I just want to see for today. If they're not available today, but they're available tomorrow, show me those slots just for tomorrow. Even if, even if there's at least one slot open, right? Even if there's, one slot open, just show me that. And so this is exactly what this function does. I pasted it in, but we're not done yet. We need to pass the correct information. So we need to pass reserved slot and we need to pass start date in case they're using a calendar and they're changing the dates that they're interested in, okay? Now, because this function returns an array of dates that are available, right, on the next available date, there's a lot of things that we can do. There's a lot of interesting things that we can do, right? So we can go back to our main homepage here, and we can display the dates right here, right? So if we click here, we have a row. But another thing that we can do is we can add a wrap, right? We can add a wrap, and we can actually give it data, and this wrap is going to display elements with the specific dates that this person is available on, right? So what we can do is inside the wrap, we can add a text field. Okay, we have a text field, and that text field is going to display the individual date. But the first thing we need to do is we need to go to the wrap, and we need to load it up with data. So I clicked on generate dynamic children, and for the value, we're going to find our custom function, get available slots. We're going to pick this, and we're going to give it parameters. So the reserve slot, we're going to give it the slots that are already booked, right? We're going to click here, and we're going to go into users, but we don't have booked. We don't have anything. We haven't loaded up that data yet. So we're going to come back out. And what we want to do is we can do it on a container level. So for each container, which means for each user, which means for each barber, we want to load up all the bookings, right? That way we have that information and we can feed it to that function in order to calculate the available dates. And so what I want to do is I'm going to come to this, I'm going to click on container, go to backend query, add backend query. We're going to do a query collection, and we're going to pick bookings, and we're going to select from a variable. We don't want all the bookings. We just want bookings for that specific barber. And we're going to come here, users, reference. We're going to say list of documents, and now we have access to bookings. And what this means is that we can go back to wrap. We can click on this, generate children from variable, and now we can click here and we can pick bookings. But we're not passing bookings. We're passing just the list of those bookings. We're going to click on available options, map list items, click here, and we're going to pick time. That's all we need to do. And here we're going to select no further changes because we don't really need to filter the confirm. And now we have start date. So what is the start date? Well, right now we can use today, right? So we can use something like today, or we can use, we have global properties. We can just use current time. That's fine because we want to search for available dates from the current time. We don't want to search them in the past, right? From current time. So we're going to say confirm, no further changes. And now this function is going to give us back the available times from the next available date. Okay, so you're gonna see how it works. I'm just gonna call it available dates, or available slots is even better. Confirm. Okay, and now we're gonna have those items displayed here. And now, as you can see, this wrap is now loaded up with data. Okay, so the next thing you want to do is click on this child inside the wrap, click here, because otherwise it's just going to display hello world, hello world, hello world. And we're going to go into available item, and we're going to pick it confirm. And now it's going to display all the available items. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this app. Before I do that, let's compile check our custom functions for errors. We're going to click here. All right, there's no errors, just like we expected. Let's go ahead and reload our app, create a new session. So here's our list of barbers. And as you can see, we are seeing the dates. We are seeing right now it's 3:30 p.m. And so we're seeing the next available time, which is 4 p.m. Now let's go ahead and fix it up a little bit. It's kind of hard to see what's happening. So let's go back to our app. And the first thing that we want to do is we want to format the date. And the nice thing about it, because this is a date time field, it's very, very easy to format it, right? We can just select the field, come back here, and we want to select inside of this available options setting. We want to select date time format, and now you can format it. So how do we want to format it? Well, we just want to format it like this. Time and or military time or something like this. When we have that, let's go ahead and reload it. All right, there you see 4 to 5 p.m. And that is because I set the working day in that custom function from 9 to 5 p.m. So it's not going to go beyond that. And you can see how I set it right here. So if you look at this function, I have this setting here. So before it adds it to available bookings, I am saying that it needs to be greater than or equal to 9 or less than or equal to 17, which is 5 p.m. Okay, and you can modify this, right? Maybe your working day is 9 to 3 p.m. Then in this case, you're gonna put 15, which is 3 p.m. Or maybe you have a long working day to 8 p.m. Then you're gonna put 20. But I just have 17, which is 5 p.m. So I have that. And that is why it's showing me this 4 to 5 p.m. Okay, let's fix it up a little bit more. There's some padding issues, alignment issues. So let's go back here. And this display name has a padding. So let's go ahead and add this padding as well. Let's add a 12. That adds a nice padding. And then we want to space out, give it a little bit of spacing. So give it a little bit of padding, maybe something like this. Let's see how it looks. All right, that looks a lot better. Now, it's not clear what day it's available, this person is available. And obviously I know it's today, but the date is not being displayed. Let's go and fix that real quick. Let's add the date right here. So if we come back here, we have this row. And what I want, we have the wrap, but I want to add another element. I want that date to be displayed. So I'm going to add a text, add it right here, drag and drop it to the top. And this thing, I want to display date that it's available. And that's actually very easy to do. And the way you do it actually is you set it to that function again, but this time, instead of getting all the elements, we just get the first element and format it as a date instead of formatting as a date as an hour and minute. Okay. And so what we want to do is we want to click here. We're going to come here. We're going to search for our function, get available slot. We're going to feed the arguments, right? So this is the reserved slot, which is going to be the bookings, and we're going to map them. We want to pass the time slots here, no further changes. And then for the start date, we're going to pass current date, but that's going to be configurable later on. Global properties, current date. And because this is a text field now, this is not a wrap that expects a list, we need to make a choice. We have an array. We just want, the first item. We're just going to say item at index. I'm just going to say, because we just want that first time, but we want that time to be formatted as a date and time, a month and date and time format, and a day of the week, month and date. Confirm. And now that should display the date. Let's go ahead and refresh. Okay, perfect. So it's showing us the date and it's showing us the time slots that it's available today. Let's go ahead and fix it. And then we're going to test to make sure that it works. So we're going to do a little bit of padding here. Let's do a 12 to match this top one. And let's go ahead and reload it. And we're going to test it to make sure that it's actually functioning correctly, not just displaying random data. Now, let's say I go into my database and I create a record for 5 p.m. It should not be displayed anymore. So let's go ahead here. We have a booking for 3 p.m., but I'm going to add another booking. I'm going to add a new document and I'm going to say time and I'm going to say timestamp. I'm going to do it for 5 p.m. Now, if I hit save, this should not be displayed. And remember, it's automatic. With Firebase Firestore, the changes are reflected automatically. So let's go ahead and here. Let's come back here and it's gone. You see it disappeared, and that is because it's taken. Now, if we also have a booking for 4 p.m., it should display the next date automatically. So let's go ahead and try that. I'm going to add a new document. I'm going to say timestamp, and we're going to say today, and I'm going to say 4 p.m., May 18. Boom. And now we're seeing May 19th. And now we're seeing the next available date. And that is kind of how one of the apps that I use, it works exactly like this. It displays the next available date. Now, there's some problem here, right? There's an overflowing issue. Let's go ahead and fix that real quick. You can do that by picking this wrap and doing expansion here. And let's see if that fixed it. Okay, there it is. Now there's no overlapping issue and we are seeing the dates this way. Now it's up to you how you want to display the date. That's very trivial to change it, but right now it looks good to me. It looks fine. We see that it's available tomorrow, the next day, and on these dates. So all dates it's available from 9 to 5. The barber is free. Let's go ahead and fix a couple of other things. We don't really need this because that's not how we are going to be booking this. And it's just taking up space. So I'm going to delete this card and let's see. Let's take a look. This wrap. Yeah. So we deleted it. Let's go ahead and reload it. And now we have the dates. Now, let's say the person wants to book on a specific date. How does it work? Well, very easy. They can just click on it and it's going to automatically book on that date by entering a new record in our bookings sub collection. So let's go ahead and do that. But before we do that, let's create functionality where they can pick the specific date that they want. Because right now it's looking at today, right? Maybe, they don't want to book today. They want to book next week. So we need to have a calendar that controls how these dates are set up. So let's go ahead and do that right now. So we have this column. When we have this list view, let's go ahead and add a calendar. We're going to add a calendar right here. Let's go ahead and drag it. Let's go drag this on top. Okay, so we have the calendar. You can change how this calendar is displayed by clicking it, and you can specify a week view. And I think a week view looks better in this case. And I'm going to do start week on Monday. Start from Monday because that's kind of what I'm used to, starting from Monday. And for the initial date, this is interesting because here you can specify the initial date. So what is going to be the initial date? Well, the initial date is going to be whatever the user picks. It's going to be, whatever the user decides. Okay. And so in our case, what we want to do is we want to have an initial date of today, and then they can change it. And that's going to reflect everything. And so the way we want to do it is we're going to have a page state variable. You can just click on home page, come back over here and click on this far right tab icon here. We're going to add a field, and I'm just going to call it start date. We're going to give it date and time. Okay, now we have a field confirm, and this is our start date. And so what we want is we want the start date to be today by default. And then when the user changes it, we're going to change the date, and that's going to recalculate everything. Okay. So by default, we want it to be set today, right? So I'm going to add an action at the top level when the page loads, and we're going to say page, update page state, and we're going to set it to global parameters, current time. So now automatically this page state variable is set to today. But if the user changes anything, we want this to recalculate everything, right? So there's a couple of things that we need to do. The first is that if you click on the calendar, well, the first thing is this initial date. We're going to do it from page state, start date. Secondly, if you click here, you can add an action. You can open an editor, and this is going to be triggered on date selected, which is perfect. And the date they pick, we want to change our page state variable. So we're going to search for page state variable, update page state. We're going to set the field to start date, and we're going to update it, set value, whatever the user picked on the widget state on the calendar. So we're going to do that, and we're going to do a start. Okay. So we have that. And so now when they change the date, the page state variable is going to be changed, but we're not using that page state variable yet. And so what we need to do right now is we need to make sure these fields, these custom functions are grabbing the right date from page state, right? So if we come in here, it's not current time anymore. We want it to be page state. I'm going to pick start date, confirm, come back here and start date, confirm, confirm. All right, let's go ahead and reload it. Hopefully it works. So this is kind of what we're seeing. Let's say we click on 19. And as you can see, it shows for 19, right? We're seeing Friday, May. This is all of 19. We can click on 20. And we're seeing all the dates for 20. And now we can browse this calendar and we can check availability on certain dates. And so let's say we're interested on Sunday, the 21st, and it's all available, it's open, but let's say somebody books it. And so if we go ahead and go into our Firestore database and we create a new document for the 21st, we're going to say time, and we're going to say timestamp the 21st, and we're going to say, I don't know, 10 p.m., 10 a.m. That should not be available anymore, right? So this 10 a.m. should not be available. It should disappear. And as you can see, it disappeared. It's not there anymore. And so we know for a fact that if this record gets added, it's going to be reflected correctly by the app. The next thing that we need to do is we need functionality for them to book on a certain day. And that's very, very easy to do. We just need a flow where if they click on something, it's just going to book it. So let's go ahead and try this out real quick. Let's see how this works. Come back here. We're going to create a function. If they click on it, right, so on this text field. And so let's create some kind of a dialog box that pops up and tells them that, hey, do you want to book it on the certain date or not? And so if we come back over here, if you go in here and let's say we have this page and we come in here, we have lots of different components. We have lots of templates, UI elements, things like that. So if we go into UI elements, you can see some interesting components, interesting dialog boxes that you can use. So if you scroll down, let's go ahead. Oh, how about this one right here? Okay, that's a nice component. Change photo. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new page, just called components, and I'm going to add the component on this page, right? I'm going to come in here. I'm going to pick this component. In fact, how about this one? This one is nice. So maybe something like this will modify. I'm just going to pick this. I'm going to wrap it in column. we have this thing right here. And so once we have this component, we can right click and say convert to component. And I'm going to say create component. And now we have this component. And so now we can customize it. First of all, this is going to say, and here is, we're going to have a message, something like this. And here you can specify the time and the person, for instance, right? Before we do that, however, we need to make sure we're passing the parameters, right? So we're going to be passing the name of the barber and the time as well. So if we click here, we are going to say, we're going to add component parameters. So we're going to add one parameter is going to be the barber, the user. I'm just going to say username. Username is going to be actually just use. Okay. Add parameter. And then we're going to say, is going to be the date time. Okay, string and date time. And then I can specify them here. And I can say something like book with, we're going to pick our user, time, and I'm going to format date time format, firm. And now we have the message. We have the message as well, spaced out. And when they click book, it's going to create the record in the database. And so we might need a couple of other parameters. I'm going to fix it up. And so now we can load up this component when they click on the specific time. Okay, so we're going to go back to our home page. We're going to come here, and this is going to be an action. And this action is going to load up. It's going to load up our component, right? This bottom sheet. We're going to say show. We are going to say select component, book action, and we're going to pass the parameters as well. So we're going to pass the parameters. What's the user? The user is this person, right? So user document, display name. Time is what they clicked on, right? So time is this available slot. This is what they clicked on. That's pretty much it. And then the button is going to create the document, right? And so that booking, we need the time, we need the barber, and we need our own user ID. And so if we click over here, if you come over here, we have everything that we need. So if we come back to our component here, this is our component. And now we can set up an action here, right? To create that new booking document, right? So we're going to come here, add an action. This is going to be database, create document. This is going to be booking. And we need the setting. This is going to be for the barber user. And so in this case, we also need the user ID. So we're going to go ahead and pass that as well. We're going to come to our component right here, and we're going to add another parameter. And this is going to be the user ID. And this is the barber in this case, so that we can have the booking. So this is the document reference here, and this is going to be users. Okay, so we're going to go back here. We're going to go into booking, and now we have the user ID. Now we need to set the field, time, and the UID of the user, the authenticated user. So the time is going to be time, and the authenticated user is going to be right here, authenticated user, user reference, which is us. So now everything is set up correctly. And by the way, we don't really need this anymore, this page anymore. We can delete this component here. We don't really need that. Okay, and that's going to fix a lot of issues. We still have one issue. We have a required parameter, and this required parameter is right here. Okay, so we need to pass the user ID to that component, right? So we're passing the user, passing the time, and this is the user ID for the bookings, right? So we're going to come here, users documents. Okay, this should go away, and now we are in business. So let's see if it works. All right, so here's the app. Let's say I want to book it for tomorrow at 1 p.m. We have this thing. We still need to fix it up, but at least we see what's happening. Book your appointment. Book with Joe Barber at 5:19 at 1 p.m. We're going to say book, and it disappears. It's not there anymore. Now we just need to close this drawer. We're going to come back here, and this action here, we need to close that drawer, right? So we're going to say close dialog box, and that's it. It closed up that existing dialog. For the background color, let's make it, you can set it to black or maybe to white. Go into home page. All right, let's say we want to book it 3 p.m. There it is. That looks much better. Okay, it's taking up the whole screen. We can say book, and it should close up. Let's see, close dialog. Closed up. It's actually should be bottom sheet dismiss. Okay, bottom sheet dismiss. And let's take a look at what's happening. We can set the height. Let's set the height to 150 or maybe 2. All right, let's say 20th. 5 p.m. Okay, that's better, but there's overflowing. It needs to be bigger. Okay, that's better. That looks pretty nice. Book your book with Joe Barber at 5:21, and that should hopefully disappear. Actually, I set this up incorrectly. It should not be here. It should be right here. So in case you have this, it should be right here on the action on the on the dialog box itself, not when you call the dialog box. So we're going to say dismiss. This is our bottom sheet. Dismiss. Now it makes sense because it's on its own bottom sheet. So quick tip right there. Let's go ahead and reload this. All right. Pick this. Let's say 4 p.m. There it is. And it's gone. And 4 p.m. is gone too. And if we go in here, you can see these are the bookings for Joe Barber. This is Joe Barber. And these are all the bookings. And we're saving the user, right? This is me. This is me. This is my booking. 8R is my user, right? So if we go to 8R, this is James No Code. And that way I can see my own bookings in a different screen. So let's go ahead and create another page for bookings. And then we're also going to create another page for the details for the barber with some ratings and things like that. So a couple of other things to do before we call it a day. So let's go back here and let's create a new page. This is going to be very, very simple. In fact, we can just use the home page. We can just duplicate it. And I'm just going to say, okay. And we don't need all this. We don't need all this bookings. And let's give it and I don't even know, let's say book. How about something like this? You guys can think of a better one. Okay, so something like this. And I want the profile to be last. So if I go in here and I go into navbar app bar, I want profile to be last. Okay, so now we have bookings. And this is going to be a list of bookings for me with all different barbers, maybe, right? All across, or maybe with the same bar. So we're going to come back here and we're going to pull it up. We're going to do not users, we're going to do bookings and value source. We want to query all sub collections. We want to query all documents across all barbers. Okay. Query all sub collections, and the filter on bookings, the UID is us, right? So we're going to say UID is equal to us, authenticated user, and these are going to be the bookings, but we also need to display the actual barbers, right? So we're going to remove this container. We don't need a backend query here. In fact, we do need a backend query, but a different backend query. Document from reference. This is going to be a user. We're going to need to pull up the individual barber, right? The individual the barber that we booked with. And so we have users here, and now we need the reference, right? So we have the UID, and so we have the parent reference. The parent reference is the bar. We have this, and now we can get the actual barber. We're gonna come back here. We're gonna go to the bookings document. This should not be, it should be users document photo URL, and this should be text. This should be the name, name of the barber maybe, right? So we're gonna go into users and display name, and then the actual booking that we had, right? So maybe we don't need, we don't need all this. We just need the booking. And when was the booking? Well, the booking, we need to display the booking, but we need the whole thing, the month, date, and time. And so we're gonna use, we're gonna remove all this, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna come into booking and just have the time, and we're gonna format date, time, format, and now we want all the information. Now let's go ahead and run the app. Let's see if it works. We need to do Firebase indexes. Let's fix that. Let's deploy indexes. Okay, it's deployed. Let's go ahead and reload the app. All right, let's go into bookings. Okay, so it's still running the indexes. Okay, the indexes actually take a little bit of time, so we need to wait a little bit. Oh, actually, it's almost done already. It's almost done. As you can see, these are the 3 p.m., etc. Let's go ahead and sort these and remove this. Let's remove this, and let's go ahead and sort this right here. And here, let's order this by time in increasing order. And what do we have an error? They're out of date. Let's go redeploy them. All right, there's the app. Let's go into bookings, and there it is. Okay, we have the bookings. We have everything. The index is currently building, cannot be used yet. Okay, so it will be done by the time you watch it. But we are seeing all the bookings. Now, another really cool thing to do is to display a button to review this particular barber, to review them, right? And we can do that very easily by coming in here. And you see this container, right? This container, this is a row, right? All of this is a row, which means we can add another, and that's going to be displayed right there. And then we can say, okay, and now we can review the user. And so how do we want to review? Well, we can just display another pop-up dialog box. Okay, and so we can even duplicate this component here, right? So we can come in here, duplicate component, and say this is rating action, review. And here we can delete this, and we can say review your experience. Okay, and here you can display, you can display some more information. But what we really want to do is we want to have two fields, right? So we have a row, we have another row, and I'm going to duplicate that, and I'm going to duplicate that again. And on the second one, I'm going to delete that, and I'm going to say, this is going to be the rating, right? So maybe a select drop down right here, and we can rate it from 1 to 5. Okay, so maybe add an option, 3, 4, and these are our options here. And here you can have something where they can enter some, and they can enter, actually not text, this is going to be an input, and here they can enter some information, right? They can, let's say, enter type your review. So something like this, we can do that, and we can actually display some information, right? So this is going to be a white. Remember, the background of this is going to be white, so it's going to be nice. It's going to display nice. And this booking is, we're going to change this. Now, what do we need to actually review it, right? We need different parameters, right? We have the booking information, but we need the booking ID, the booking reference, and we also need the actual, this information, which we're going to get here. So I'm going to replace this input rating, and I'm going to replace this at input reviewer experience. Yeah, we don't need that. Let's keep it simple. Let's do a little bit of padding here, title large, something like this. And yeah, that looks good. That looks pretty good. We can also do a little bit of padding on the bottom. Okay, so something like this. It looks really good. Let's do an action here. Do we have all the, let's fix this up. We don't need user. We don't need this. We need the booking ID. We need the booking ref. It's going to be the document reference for the booking, because we have all the other information here. We're going to do that. And now we can actually create a flow, right? So we're going to create a backend document, but not on book. This is going to be reviews. And actually it needs the user ID. So we need the user ID, not the booking reference, the user ID. Component parameters going to be the user. In fact, this is going to be the provider, the person, the barber, and we have user ref, and we're going to add the field. The rating is going to be from variable. Rating is widget state, input rating. Rating is an integer, okay, and we have input rating, so we need to cast it. We're going to create a quick custom function to string to an int. We're going to return an integer. We're going to pass a string. Okay, we're going to say this function, and we have this function to integer. We're going to take now we have the rating. We're going to add the review. Okay, and now we have our review, and it also dismisses this sheet here. Okay, compile. Let's check that custom function. Okay, that's done. Let's take a look and see if it works. Let's come in here. One thing I want to do though, we only want to review bookings that have happened already. We can't review future. And so this button, it needs to have conditional visibility. We're going to come here, we're going to create a condition, and we're going to say that this button will only be displayed if the booking is in the past, right? So if we pick the booking document and we say time is current, okay? So it's in the past, it's less, it's already past. And so if we come in here, we reload, let's see if that works. All right, we got this. Let's go into our booking. And as you can see, these are all future bookings. We can't review them, but if I enter a booking that happened in the past, we should be able to review it. So I'm going to come back into my database, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here. So I'm going to add a new document. Let's say this was, which fields do we need again? Time and UID. Well, yeah, time and UID. So I'm just going to copy this UID so that it's associated with us. I'm going to add time, UID, which is a reference, and the time is going to be timestamp. And let's say we had a booking. It doesn't really matter. Okay, I'm going to save it. That should appear. And as you can see, it appears here. Now we can review. And if we click on it, we should be able to have that dialog box load and review it. So we're going to go back here. We're going to add an action. Action is going to be that select component, review action. 200 is it? Background, we want it to be, and we're going to pass a bunch of variables. So user reference is going to be the barber. Okay, so we're going to come in here. This is the booking. Yeah, this is the user right here. And that's it. That's all we need to do. And now let's see if it works. All right, I'm gonna go into bookings. Okay, so it works, but there's an overflow. So we're gonna make it a little bit bigger. Let's make it 300. All right, perfect. That looks perfect. So let's say fine, excellent barber. Let's see if that works. Submit review. Okay, closed it. Let's come back here. Let's go into our barber, Joe Barber. There's reviews and there's our review. Excellent barber. Okay, so we have one review, and the only thing that's left to do is have a page that displays information about the barber. So we can click this, go to the detail page, and have some, maybe description or something like that, but also reviews and rating, maybe an average of all the ratings. So let's do that real quick. This is the last thing that we need to do. And we can also remove this while we're at it. Come back here, home page, remove this, and let's add a new page. This is going to be a detail page, and we're going to go into content and find a page that kind of looks like it. How about this? This guy right here, barber detail. And what is first thing about this page is that we need to pass this is the user document reference, users confirm, and then once we pass it, the first thing we need to do is we need to load the data. We're going to do a document from reference users, and now we have the data throughout the page. Let's set the image, and maybe we can delete that. This is going to be there. We don't need this. This is where we want to show the rating, which we're going to do in a second. Maybe their bio or something, like we can do that. And we also have a favorite function. Maybe we'll do that for the next iteration of the app. And there's the book appointment, right? So book appointment can lead us back to the page. One thing I want to do is I want to display the reviews and I want to show the rating. Okay? So first, let's display the reviews. So where we want to display the reviews, we want to display the reviews right here. So we can add a list, and there's the list. Perfect. So yeah, we can, so how about something like this? And we can have a row, and inside the row, we can have maybe like 2 text fields. I'm going to center the row. I'm going to do a little bit of padding on this list view, and here's maybe some review, and maybe this rating bar, I'm going to put it down here, do a little bit of padding on the top as well. So something like this. So their information, reviews, book, favorite, Dr. Barber. And this list view is going to have the review. All right, so we're going to come back here, query collection, reviews from variable, user confirm, and now this thing is going to be the review and the review and the okay, and then this thing is going to show the rating bar, right? This is going to actually show the overall, and for this to work, we need a function that gets an average. So we're going to come in here, we're going to add a new function. I already have this function ready. It's called get average double. It returns a double, and it gets a list view of integers of reviews. So we get back a double. We need a double because those stars, they need a double, right? So a double, remember, is like 1.1, 1.5, 2.5. It's not like a whole number. It's a whole number and a part of a number, and a part of a whole number. And this thing is going to be a list of which is the reviews, right? And this is the font, right? I also use ChatGPT for this. Very, very simple. Just paste it in here, save this, format it. So this just sums it up, and this right here just returns the average, right? Sum divided by the numbers, by the number of items, number of. Okay, we need to still check it. We're gonna do that in a second, but we can come in here and then we can do the rating bar. So for initial rating, we're gonna pass the data, right? We're gonna come here, and what we need to do is we need to pass the reviews. We don't have reviews, so before we can pass it, we need to do a backend query for review, and we're gonna do from variable user rep. We're gonna get all reviews, confirm, and now we have them. We can come back here, and for this initial rating, we can run our function, which is called, it wants a list of integers, just the reviews. So we're gonna pick reviews, but we need to map the items, right? We're gonna say map just to rate this. We don't need anything, no further changes. Confirm, and that's it. So icon count is 5, icon size is 24. That's fine. And then there's the rated color and the okay, you can kind of play around with it. Let's go ahead and come and check our 2-statement custom function here. Should be no problem. And in this case, there's one review, which means all of these should be what? Okay, they should all be yellow. And in fact, we don't have a detail screen linked yet. So we're gonna go into our homepage. We are gonna click here, and this thing is gonna link to their detail. Add an action, navigate to, we're gonna pass the user rep, and now that's gonna redirect it to our detail. If we go to detail, we have the back button. Does the back navigate back? And maybe this one also. I'm going to do this as to navigate back. All right, let it compile. We still need to refresh it. Go ahead and look at our reviews. We have the reviews screen. Let's come back here. Let's reload our modified app. because I made those changes after I started to compile it. Okay, click on it. There it is. Excellent barber. We have the reviews. We have this. You can book an appointment. Come back. That's gonna come back there. This goes back. Joe Barber. And let's say I review it. Let's say I go back and I review it again. So let's go ahead. Let's say I add another document here, rating and review. Let's say rating and review. Let's say I do a rating of 1 and review didn't like. And now the overall rating should be 2.5, 2.5. So we're going to reload the app. In fact, I don't think we even need to reload the app. It should see it immediately. And we see 2.5. So it rounded it off to 3, right? It needs to round it off. So it rounded it up to 3 out of 5. Okay, so as you can see, you see those two reviews. I don't like the formatting too much. Let's do a left justified, but let's do a path, something like this, and maybe a path. Okay, how does this should? All right, there we see it. We see we're logged in, and we should probably remove this once we review it because we've done it. There's no need to have that. And let's click on this. That's a little bit better, but still not ideal. All right, so maybe something like this, something a little bit better aligned. Now let's go ahead and add another barber just to see if everything works correctly. I'm gonna come out, I'm gonna log out, and I'm gonna create a new account. This is gonna be barber at barber.com. All right, so I'm logged in as the other barber, and so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna log out and log in as the user, as the consumer. Before I do that, I want to make sure I have users. We have the barber, and we need to add a role. Right, so role is provider. I'm gonna add a display name. Okay, come back here, and now I'm seeing the second barber here. Obviously, I don't have a picture, but as you can see, he has different dates. This one is, it's not available on certain days, but I can come in here, and this one, as you can see, this one is not available at 3 p.m., but this one is available all day. But I can book him for 5 p.m. Book with barber 2 of 519 at 5 p.m. I'm gonna say book, and he's not available at 5 p.m. anymore, and I can go to my bookings. And as you can see, I have these future bookings with Joe Barber, but I have a booking with Barber too as well. And then other bookings with Joe Barber. And you can change the dates. You can scroll through original date. You can come to next month. You can look at all of these dates and it's all going to function. And obviously you can take this a lot further. You can modify it. You can change it around. So many things that you can do. But the hardest part was the booking functionality in my view. The booking functionality and kind of making it all come together, making it all kind of function together. And so now that you have kind of the booking functionality, you have all that, it's very trivial to customize it, modify it, take it as far as you want, change it to whatever you want. It's really, really up to you. And you can easily do that by joining our Patreon community. Because when you join our incredible Patreon community, you will be able to view and or clone this exact app and take it and change it to whatever you want. Maybe start a new business, sell it to other companies, you name it. All our users right now, all our amazing members can easily view and or clone all of the apps that I built on this channel. And you will be able to do so as well once you join our amazing Patreon community using the link in the description below. And remember, you're going to get a ton of extra content, Q&As, live streams, behind the scenes content, as well as my amazing and exclusive, as well as my amazing and supporter exclusive masterclass episodes where I do a comprehensive deep dive of some topic areas that a lot of people are struggling with. So if that sounds like something you may be interested in, then definitely check out our amazing Patreon community and consider becoming a member. Now, if you guys want to see more tutorials of me building all kinds of interesting apps using FlutterFlow without any code, check out this playlist in the corner of your screen. You're going to see some amazing tutorials where I build all kinds of interesting apps, and you're definitely going to get a ton of value from that.